For Unit 1, Day 4 notes, the title of this would be Exploring Angle Relationships. So if you can see here in this diagram, we have different types of angles. So we're going to show an example of each kind. It went ahead and defined each one of these for you. So for vertical angles, these are two angles across from one another using intersecting lines. And they're always congruent. So if we draw intersecting lines, and we can label these angles 1, 2, 3, and 4. What they're saying is that the angles that are across from each other, like angles 1 and 3, these are congruent. So angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Angle 2 is congruent to angle 4, meaning that they are vertical, they're across from each other, which means that they are equal to each other. Okay, then in, let's go with adjacent angles. So for adjacent angles, if I drew one large angle, and I drew a ray in the middle of that, or just somewhere inside of it, and I would label this angle 1 and angle 2. Angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent because they are next to each other, and they share a common side. We know that a side of an angle is a ray. So angle 1 and angle 2 are adjacent angles because they share the same side. Okay? For a linear pair, you draw a straight angle, and then you have a ray coming from that straight angle. Okay? So now if I label this angles 1 and angle 2, you would say that angle 1 plus angle 2 is 180 degrees. Okay, so we have a straight angle, so this angle plus this angle would be the 180. Okay, now going along the lines with the linear pair, we're going to talk about supplementary angles. So these kind of go together, but they're just a tiny bit different. So supplementary can have two different types of pictures. It can have the exact same picture here. Okay, so let's draw that one out. Okay, so again, supplementary are two angles whose sum is 180 degrees. So you have angle 1 plus angle 2 equals 180 degrees. Okay? But you can also have two separate angles not touching, like so. We'll call that 92 degrees, and we'll call this one 88 degrees. So in this case, if I add up these two numbers, I would get 180. So that means that they would be supplementary to each other because they equal 180. Now, if you can't remember, if you have a hard time remembering that supplementary is 180 degrees, think of the S as like an 8. So 180. S is the 8. Okay? Now, for complementary, let me try to focus this really quickly here. For complementary, it says any two angles whose sum is 90. Okay, so for this one, we would have a picture of a right angle. And what happens is that you have a ray coming from the vertex here. And you would say that angle 1 and angle 2 add to be 90. Okay? Another example of this is if I just had the two angles and they weren't touching, but let's say that this one was 44 and this one was 46 degrees. Well, 46 plus 44 is 90. Okay? And then if you have a hard time remembering, like complementary is 90, then you could think of the C turning into a 9 That would be 90 right there. Okay? So complementary is 90, supplementary 180 degrees. And a linear pair means that it's on a straight line, which is 180. I'm so sorry, it's a little bit blurry and I'm not really sure how to get it fixed correctly. Alright, so now, down here it says, can you identify the angles? Check all relationships between angle 1 and angle 2. Okay, so angle 1 and angle 2, they are across from each other, so they are vertical. They don't have anything else in common that we know of. Number 2, if this is a 90-degree angle here, then this side is a 90-degree angle. So angle 1 and angle 2 would add to 90, which is complementary. These two angles are also right next to each other, so that is adjacent. Okay, and it wouldn't apply to anything else. In number 3, these two are next to each other, so they are adjacent. Since they're on a straight angle, they have to add up to 180, so that would be supplementary and linear pair. Number 4, these are right next to each other, so they're adjacent. And they're not on a straight angle. We don't have the little square here to show complementary, so it can't be anything else. In number 5, this one, you can see how these two are congruent. These little marks mean that this angle is the same as this angle. Okay, so vertical angles say that this is the same, and this one's the same. Okay, so these angle 1 and angle 2 are vertical. Secondly, we know that this part is 90, which 180, so this one plus this one plus this one would be 180. 180 minus that 90 leaves this at 90 degrees here. So these two added up would be complementary as well. Okay, and then lastly, number 6, the relationship here is that they are adjacent. I'm sorry, they are vertical, so they are opposite of each other. They are also supplementary, because if this is 90, this is 90. Okay, 180, this whole thing is 180. 180 minus this 90 gives you 90 here. So if angle 1 is 90, so is angle 2. And 90 plus 90 is back to 180, which is supplementary. Okay. Even though linear pair adds up to 180, they have to be adjacent. They'd be next to each other. And in this case, they are opposite of each other. They are not right next to each other. So they are not a linear pair. They are just supplementary and vertical. All right, now in example 1 is like a true-false statement. So using the diagram to the right, is the statement true or false? So angle BFD and CFD are adjacent angles. That is false. Because this angle right here, CFD, it falls inside of this big angle. Okay, so for it to be adjacent, it has to be next to this angle, not like part of the whole angle. So this one is definitely false. Okay, AFB, so this angle here, and EFD are vertical angles. Okay, well, that is false. This right here, we continue on, and so that these would be vertical, but they have this extra part here, so it's not vertical. So false. Angle AFE, angle AFE, so this angle here, and BFC, right here, are complementary. So I would have to add 62 and 28. And they would have to equal 90. And they do, so that's true. AFD is a straight angle. That's true. Straight angle. And then lastly, it says that we need to name a pair of vertical angles. So let's erase all this stuff so we can see a little better. So if I look here, I'm going to use a pink marker. We can see that this one and this one are vertical. So angle AFE and angle CFD. So for a theorem is a conjecture or a statement that you prove to be true, and a proof is a convincing argument that uses deductive reasoning. I feel like this is kind of misplaced here, but actually it kind of goes along with this as well. But we will actually do proofs next chapter, next unit. But the theorem here says vertical angles are congruent, so we know that opposite angles are equal to each other. Like angle 1 is congruent to angle 3, meaning it's the same. 2 and 4 are also the same. So in example 2a, if I want to know what x is, it's going to be 112 since it's the opposite of the x. Okay. What is the value of x? Well, we would set these equal to each other and solve that equation. So I would subtract the 2x and get 21 equals 2. Divide by 2 and we get 10 1/2.